This is Between Hooksets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the fishing crew.
That's an opposite-handed hook set there, bud.
Over here?
I thought you went off. Oh, maybe get your camera mirrored.
This would be. Yeah. It all depends. Here's the crazy thing, though. In my exact 1 month of walleye fishing, every hook set except one has come from the right. I had one on the left. Well, this is backwards now. So
yeah,
it's so confusing. And I don't remember.
Hand? Oh, wait, wrong hand.
Right. Well, either that or, you're pointing at the camera and you're like, oh, and like, right. And it just point at the camera. Boom. Yeah. There it is. Right. Absolutely. It's just that simple. But, I went out tonight hoping that tonight was going to be the night because 3 nights just been kind of flat, not a big, huge deal. And got a northern, and I went, the northern are starting to bite. And usually that is a prelude to the walleye starting to bite. But I had a few bites, and I had a walleye follow me up right up to my feet, just didn't commit to the crank. And then I hooked one up and had to go up and get the light on, so because it swallowed the hook so bad, but we got it out, no bleeding, good to go, and back swimming. But I put this one on my profile just for giggles because I'm like, look at that thing, and it really, until you see this,
that walleye drum.
Well, I got a buddy of mine, Aaron, said, "Do you think it's a wiper?" I'm like, "Oh, I've never heard of a wiper." And I guess a wiper is a cross between a walleye and a white bass?
No, a wiper is a cross between a striped bass and a white bass, a wiper.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah,
because I looked for pictures.
A white bass. Yeah, it's a white.
This one, I mean, when you look at this thing, this is an old walleye. It was 24 inches. It weighed 7 pounds 6 ounces. Or I mean 6 pounds 6 ounces. Sorry, but it, man, I'll tell you what, it's got a look to it, and the funny thing was
throwing its hump.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's I called it Quasimodo, and she's back fishing. It is a her. I flipped her over and I took a look. But anyway, when she landed in the net upside down, I'm like, wow, that's a fat little round belly, but then her belly was flat. Like, look how flat the belly is.
Yeah, her belly's in her back, it looks like.
Yeah, right. But her, it just had this pudgy look to it. And it was kind of an orange, not a white. It just had a really odd, I'm like, ooh, I think this thing is old.
That's because you're
fishing. When I got it up.
It's because you're fishing on a nuclear waste plant, I think.
Well, you're not supposed to tell people that I'm fishing in the nuclear waste plant. That's where the big fish are.
Yeah.
The nuclear ones, the two-headed ones, I'm just not sharing the two-headed stuff.
When I was a kid, we'd go to 3rd Street fishing, and my dad's like, don't eat those walleyes. They got 3 eyes and glow in the dark.
Yeah, right. Here, one more quick story. Gregg's on in the green room, so we'll pop him on here in a quick second. But the other day, I wanted to catch fish so bad, but it wasn't happening. And I kept doing my thing where I'd rest a spot and I'd move to a spot and I'd rest a spot. And I came back and I sat down and I casted 1, 2, 3 times. And I looked down. I'm like, oh my God, there's a walleye at my feet with its face in the rocks. So all I could see was this back glowing in my headlamp, and I could see the dorsal, and I'm like, what do I do? So I just sat there and I stared at it. And as I stared at it, I suppose the light, it kind of backed up to see, what's going on. And I could see those 2 big bright eyes. And I'm like, now what do I do? Do I grab the net? Do I take a swoop at it? What should I do? And so we sat there and we looked at each other. I think he was just staring into the light, right? Maybe he thought Jesus was there to take him. I don't know, but or Peter or John or somebody. But yeah, so I'm like, what do I do? And I wanted to grab my camera and take a picture because it would have been a kick-ass picture. Yeah. But instead I grabbed the net and I swooped down at it and I missed it. So
that happens.
yeah, I kind of screwed up. I honestly, I should have just let it be. It was a great opportunity to just enjoy nature. Gregg Wollner, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. You know, I'm going to get this out of the way. When I was in Bemidji, I took this selfie, and I just took it just to take it. And now it has historical meaning, and it'll be one of my favorite photos forever. And I just didn't realize that there would be significance to it a little over a year later, which, by the way, you were on the program October 18th. So we're just 5 days short of a year here with us. So 360 days. Thank you very much. In the cattle business, they love 360 days. So
well, it's over. If he's on October,
that's a great picture. I want to.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's November.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so it's. Oh shoot, yeah, you're right. It's over. So it's just been a little over a year. I did post this picture because of your Viking hat.
Yeah.
And the fact that it kind of matched the trout, the purple hue, and the hat just seemed to match. And I thought, well, I've got to use that yellow, that golden purple, in the promo card and make that work. And then you said, yeah, but you know what? We can talk about walleye and bass too. So we'll talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. It's great to have you on.
I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it's been a fun run. I've had a lot of great fishing trips and a lot of great fishing stories have come out of the last 5 years at Northland. And so it certainly has been fun. And I posted something on social media saying it's bittersweet. But I'm really happy for our owners. John Peterson's been, he has owned Northland for 50 years. And I told him, John, you've been paying the people in Bemidji for 50 years. It's time for you to go relax a little bit and go on vacation yourself. So I'm happy for those guys. I think GSM will bring some change to the company, but it'll bring resources that we never dreamed of having. So I'm excited for the next opportunity for them.
It is bittersweet. I'm sad. I'm sad and I'm happy, in both ways, because you have that mom and pop owned business, that icon in the upper Midwest, and then frankly in the United States and the nation and the world, and there's a little bit of a change there. I may have shed a tear or two, but it's life. You go on. It sounds like Charlie and Jace are going to hang out and be a part of it. Sam, I don't know, has Sam given his decision yet? Maybe that's something we shouldn't talk about. That's up to Sam.
Yeah, I don't know what Sam's going to do yet. I think he has an opportunity to do some freelance work that he's always wanted to be on his own. But Dan Root, our sales manager, will still be there. And several other people behind the scenes that really make things happen there are still there. And, I've met the people at GSM. And they've got a guy that runs the fishing division named Chris, Crispin Polly. And Crispin, longtime industry guy, has been with Strike King, knows everything about fishing. He's legit. And I think the brand will be in good hands with that group of people. So everybody I've met there has been positive, and they want to do the right thing, and I've been on that side. I've been the acquirer a few times in my career also. And the intention is always there. I think they're making the commitment by hiring the employees to stay there and letting them stay in Bemidji, and make sure they stay in touch with the consumers and the customers and whatnot. So I think it'll be okay. It's always hard. We had a lot of balls in there. We kind of launched the tungsten jig thing a couple of years ago, and some TPE, soft plastics, and had a Gamakatsu jigs for bass and the Smeltinator. And we had a lot of things going on all at once. And so it needed the resources of a bigger company to be able to pull all that off. And I think we've got it now. So.
Dennis? Well, yeah, think about where John came from, and the family and the friends, and the employees in those 50 years to become one of the most iconic fishing lure companies ever. And then to be in the Minnesota Fishing Hall of Fame, Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame,
Right.
as because Northland is separately, right? John is separately,
and Dwayne, John's
and
brother,
Dwayne, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's amazing. And then you got your pro staffers. I talked to Brian Brosdahl. Brian's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm good. Dick Meyer, Craig, he's like, well, if they want me, I said, who else is going to do it? The only thing is they're going to have to send everything from Texas. It's not going to come from Bemidji anymore. You're going to get all your backdrop stuff and all that live show stuff from Texas. And he goes, yeah, you're right. But yeah, and Craig is a heck of a guy. And, there's some great people there. Sarah Trampy, I wonder if she'll be sticking around.
So all those people, just so you know, they told me to go ahead and sign those people for 2025. So Tom Wynn, Rosedahl, Sarah, Gussie, obviously, those people are all signed through 2025. And then I think after that, our local regional guys are all getting signed now. Charlie's in charge of that. I think I waited to sign some of the people because I didn't know what their direction would be. Would they want to go forward with this regional army and doing it the way we do with a lot of social media, a lot of digital, or would they want to handle it some other way? And they've come in and just said, yeah, we want all that. They still have our marketing agency. Providence Marketing is our agency of record down here in the cities that handles a lot of our marketing work. So at this point, I don't think there's any changes for 2025. And that's all you can really ask for is let everybody get a chance to introduce themselves and let everybody show what they can do. And then you hope for the best. You hope that you're what they want, but they're certainly what we wanted. So somebody will want it. And so I think everything is pretty good there in an industry that has a lot of change. This one shocks everybody because we haven't had that much change. Brosdahl's been there, forever. And Gussie's obviously been with Northland forever. And so we've had a lot of people that have been there for a long, long time. And, you asked me if I'd have John Peterson on tonight. And I thought about it, but it's deer hunting season. And I heard he was walking around with a beard up there. And I thought he might not be already intact. But I just couldn't imagine trying to get him hooked up to this technology out in the middle of nowhere at 7:00 at night. That was just too stressful. So, but John has been in that office virtually every day, making sure the employees are taken care of. And, we're really working hard to make sure every employee there has a job before, they shut it down. And I think most of the management have all been hired, and we're just kind of making sure everybody's taken care of there. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
We'll stay in the industry.
It broke my heart a little bit when I read the Bemidji Pioneer and found out they were going to shut it down.
Greg, I'll be honest with you.
Let me, it's not like this is part of that conversation, but I think that in hindsight, I don't know what else would have happened. I had told the owners that if we were going to grow, we probably had to move out of that building.
Okay.
And it just wasn't big enough for us. We were growing at a pretty fast clip, and we weren't going to be able to continue that for much more than a year. And then when we started thinking about moving, then I think we had to take into account, well, is the Minnesota lead ban threat? Now this is pre-election, right? Gosh, what if we stay in Minnesota and there's a lead ban and then the company's not worth anything? And so we were kind of in this stage of we have to figure out what we're going to do. And as heartbreaking as it is, there's a lot of things that go into that decision that are far deeper than, well, should we just move to a bigger building? If that was it, we would have moved to a bigger building.
Sure.
And so business kind of dictates. It's a hard place to run a business from when a significant portion of it is selling direct to consumers. And, every single item that comes into that warehouse comes into Minneapolis and then trucked up to Bemidji. And then we literally every day truck it back down to Minneapolis to get sent out to our customers and consumers. So, in reality, there are a lot of business considerations that for the way business is today and the way that costs are changing, there were probably going to be business considerations that had to be taken into place.
So let me be honest before we go too much further. When Brian said he shed a tear, I'm pretty sure he sucked his thumb and was on his blankie for a few nights because I heard about it for like 10 days straight. I can't believe Northland. Like it wasn't I shed a tear. Let's be honest, Jason. You were beside yourself. You just thought his dog got ran over.
Well, and here's the thing, Greg. Kurt he's like, dude, it had to happen. I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing. When I started in through the outdoors, I didn't know anybody. I mean, I didn't know anybody, right? Except your wife. I mean, that's it, really, and so Jason, right? And that's so really, I mean, that's as close as I got. So when I reached out to Linder Media, Jeremy Smith reached out and he started doing some episodes with me, and they were kind. And then I heard from Kyle Waterman.
Yeah.
And he hooked me up with Charlie and hooked me up with Sam. And then they hooked me up with all the pro staff. And so that's how I got to know Joel Nelson and Brian Brosdahl and all those guys. And so, I mean, that was my start in this whole thing. And like Kurt said, Between Hooksets wouldn't be what it is if I hadn't have got those connections in the early days of In Through the Outdoors in 2021. So, I might have taken it a little personal, but I'm happy about it.
I didn't take it great either, by the way, when I heard it. Well, there's one thing I told John. I was up there last week. I'll go back up on Monday, but I said, John, you're kind of the last one. You look around this industry, and whether it's Lindy or any of these other companies that have been around, they've kind of. It's hard to pass this down to the next generation. And I think what makes it either rewarding or sad or however you want to think about it, but Northland, the heart of Northland is these four young guys we have working in the marketing department, quite honestly. Joey, Charlie Peterson and Jace Peterson that are Dwayne's grandkids. And then Dan, kind of the old soul. Dan is the sales manager, is one of Dwayne's son-in-laws. And then Joey Oman and Sam Larson. And that group came out of Bemidji. The four young guys came out of Bemidji State. They were all interns there. And so a 50-year-old company, and I attribute virtually all of the success in the last few years is to those young people making the company look young again. And
yeah, right. That's so
products.
true. Yeah, you have to applaud that.
We don't look like a bunch of 50-year-olds,
Right. Certainly don't feel that way.
Yeah, not very many companies get to have that rejuvenation, and they really brought that. And to have family members of the founders, grandsons of the founders, next generation be able to do that is really unique and really special. And so they'll carry that on, and they'll be in the industry for a long time. Those kids, they are superstar bright.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Every time I go to an event that they're at, and Jason and I spent a bunch of time together out back where the boats were lining up for the big finale at the Bassmaster Classic.
Right.
And I had a ton of fun. He's talking to some old fart that whatever, but it was really fun to talk to him and get some of the inside scoop on stuff going on and to get to know him better. It was truly fantastic. So
it was the most thrilling part of my career is these last 5 years. It was really fun to be around youth, and it's really fun to see the sport getting young right now.
Right.
Walleye fishing in general is getting young, and you have these high school anglers that grew up in the bass teams and whatnot found out, hey, when we're fishing for bass, we catch these walleyes and they're delicious and girls love that. And they're like, I'm going to walleye fish sometime. And it of brought a whole new youthful energy into the sport. And there's controversy with the electronics, but I love it. It brings it brings a new attitude and a new way of fishing for all these guys. So
Very true. Yeah.
Been fun from that standpoint.
You bring up electronics. I'm sorry, but I'm going to drop this because every one of them, zero electronics.
Yeah.
That's it. But yeah, so it's been a great fall. It really has been an awesome fall. But I was sitting on the rocks with my Garmin and I was watching and not stopping. And then one day, a couple of friends, including Kurt, one day I said this has to stop, and then it was game on. So, the electronics, they are what they are. I don't know if you got a chance to see this beauty that I caught the other day. This poor girl, she's isn't she something?
That was where he's pushing the nuclear waste plant.
Right. Yes, exactly. So tell us about the walleye fishing for you. Obviously, you spent a fair amount of time fishing walleye on Bemidji. And where's your favorite lake to fish walleye?
Well, I probably that walleye there was up at Mille Lacs this spring, and what I feel about electronics is I love the idea of being able to cast walleyes in shallow water. I love catching a walleye in 4 feet of water or 7 feet of water when it can't just go down and sit down there. It has to get away somewhere. And
right.
So I love that style of fishing. And so I like that at Mille Lacs. And I do have that quite a bit up there with Brad Hawthorne. I go up and see him a few times a year, and I get up there. I live on the St. Croix River down here, which is the border water between Minnesota and Wisconsin. This is where I do most of my fishing. And so it's the same thing. I used to just troll lead core like every other old guy. And I hate pulling spinners. So I would just drag lead core up and down the channel of the St. Croix River.
My language.
And then all of a sudden, everybody's catching these big fish in like no water up on shallow points. And that just woke me up to a whole different way of fishing. So from an industry guy, 30 years in the industry, nothing has ever been better for the fishing business than forward-facing sonar. Everybody has to get new equipment. You go from trolling rods to spinning rods. You go from even in bass fishing, you think that it all goes from bait casting, and then people have to go get spinning rods. When they had the bass tournament up at Leech Lake this year, I was working at Reed's, and some guy comes in there from Alabama. He's like, "I need a spinning rod. I don't even own one."
Really?
Like, yeah, you're fishing the opens, and you don't own a spinning rod.
Spinning rod.
Yeah.
Well,
that's interesting.
When the Elite Series came to Lake Oahe, I was talking to the tournament director back then because they called me to get some boat marshals, and I said, "I don't know if you boys know what you're in for." Yeah. And he called me ahead of time, and he goes, "Wow, we've been to the Great Lakes, we've been to the St. Lawrence." I'm like, "No, I don't know what you're. I don't. If Mother Oahe wants to rear her ugly face, you don't know what you're in for." And I think I went there after the rules meeting to make sure he had enough marshals, and I saw a couple of guys who were like, "What is this 180, 200 foot of water? We don't even have line on our rods to go past 20 feet. Like they were having to re-rig rods because they had no idea. Like they're like, "We're finding fish suspended in 50, 80 foot of water. We don't have line to get there." So
the great thing about those tournaments, man, they find fish, don't they? I mean, when they were up at Leech Lake, and a lot of people didn't think those fish would be up that shallow there, and in some of the places they found them. And that I think right now is the golden age of fishing. If anybody ever wanted to be in the fishing business, today's the day. There's never been a better opportunity, but you can't make money doing it the way you used to do it.
Yeah.
And
right.
You have to find a way to be unique. And, look at Tom Wynn. You can go get sponsors, or you can go put together a class and sell it online.
Yeah.
And to have a personal relationship with so many anglers, and it's a different way now. And sometimes I tell some of our pros as I've been leaving this group is, being called a pro might not be as glamorous in the future as just being an influencer.
Yeah, true.
Influencers are making a fortune out there, and pro fishermen are not getting their fair share. And really what they need to get accounted for is the number of people that they can bring to a brand, or the relationship they can build between a customer and a brand. And I think we're going through an age where just buying things at kind of big box retail, where you felt like we all shifted to that 20 years ago, because it seemed like they had everything. First time you walked into a Cabela's 25 years ago, you thought, oh my God, they have every single thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you kind of like, well, they don't have nearly everything. They don't carry this little tiny South Dakota jig that I like using, or they don't carry, some color that's only good on Lake Oahe. And so the business really changed. And so now having that relationship, I look at those guys at Walleye Nation Creation, who I don't know them at all, but I keep on walking in and looking at their products on the shelves. I'm like, who are these guys? I don't even know who this is.
Right.
And if I walked out into South Dakota, they would say, well, who are you? Northland? So I give those brands a lot of credit. They've created a relationship. They listen to the consumer, and that's a new world. And so that's what I see in the fishing department. It's or in the fishing world now. It's kind of a collection of small brands, a lot of custom rods, a lot of hand tights.
Custom rods is insane, isn't it?
Yep.
The amount of custom rods.
Yeah, just silly.
Mudhole has got to be smiling like nobody's business with how many people are tying rods nowadays.
Right. Yeah, and I think it gives you an opportunity. There's guys that make rods here in town that absolutely make a rod for a marabou jig for smallmouth fishing better than anybody else. Dean Vaselka is a guy down here that does that. And so all these, there are a lot of little guys, and I don't want that to be condescending. They're just not one of the big guys. And,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the cool thing about this digital world and the way things are now. You don't have to have a distributor. You don't have to have a store. You can have your own store. You can do your own thing on the social media, and it's fantastic. It's free enterprise. It's it's capitalism.
That's right.
So I got a question, because we kind of got off topic, but a lot of guys, when you get into the forward-facing sonar conversation, and they're like, well, it's killing tackle manufacturers. This is just killing tackle manufacturers. And you made a comment that it's helped you guys. And I've always said to them, well, tackle manufacturers need to evolve like Northland did, like Berkeley making forward-facing sonar baits. So you think it's helped your business by the forward-facing sonar?
Oh, no doubt, because walleye fishing didn't ever use soft plastics hardly. And a $4 jig, when we introduced tungsten jig, people looked at us like we were crazy,
Well, let's be honest, that wasn't forward-facing sonar. That was the franchise himself, Tom Wind.
The franchise. Yeah, that was Wall Chow. Right on.
It was even before
Tom
went and showed it to him, and it was like, God, are you kidding me? But the difference was, people found out you don't really lose that many when you're casting jigs. If you're going to go drag that through the Mississippi River, rocks and all the crap down there, or even some certain circumstances, but you don't lose that many when you're casting them. And then people started using soft plastics, and they started using different hair jigs, and it just spawned a whole nother world of premium casting tackle, of catching them in a way other than a jig and a minnow, or a slip bobber and a leech, or a crawler and a spinner. And nowadays you just don't hardly see young people doing any of the old techniques. If you go up to Mille Lacs, you'll still see the old guys catching fish, doing it the same old way with a tiller boat, putting it in reverse and dragging it along a brake line. And then you'll look over and there's three boats up shallow staring at their graph, pitching jigs into 4 feet of water. And that means that used to be everybody out there going backwards on the brake line. And now, it's shifting and that's bringing new people into the sport. Like a lot of new things that you can do in soft plastics. There's different materials, tungsten weights, like teaching people how to drop shot for walleyes, teaching people how to do all this bobber scoping for walleyes. That stuff did not exist. It existed in a little tiny community, but these are all new techniques, and we're we're in the very forefront of what it's going to be.
Cool.
100%.
Yeah.
And so all the bass fishermen are now doing what walleye guys do. They're out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of the lake, and all the walleye fishermen do what the bass guys are doing. They're up shallow. And I mean, both those sports are almost kind of like flip-flopped. And and when you see something change that much, it brings an awful lot of excitement. People, they find out there's a new way to catch them. And, the first time I caught one on soft plastics, it was like, are you kidding me? You can just go do that?
Right. No minnows, no worms.
Yeah. Now I haven't, other than when I have to catch one for a photo and I'm under a lot of pressure from the kids, then might put on a
I mean, and that was the comment I got from people was, all you got to have is a jig and a night crawler. It's just going to kill the industry. And I'm like, I don't foresee that happening. And it's great to hear it from the CEO of Northland that it's really changed. And now I have argument like, hey, I talked to CEO of Northland and he straight up told me this is a good thing for the sport. Like, it's not killing tackle manufacturers.
Well, I've gotten to the point where, in the same way that I would not go out and ice fish without sonar, whether it's a flash or what, I just wouldn't do it anymore. I haven't done it for 20 years. And I always tell people if I forgot it at home, I'd just go home. I'm not going to just sit on a bucket. I mean, I can remember do that to my kid, and I'd be over staring at a Vexilar, and he's over there just blindly, and I'm like, that poor guy, just horrible. Yeah. And I would never do that. And he wouldn't go with me if I didn't give him one. And now I kind of feel that way about forward-facing sonar is if I've only got a couple hours to fish this afternoon, I love the idea that I can go out there and look and see if there's fish there. And if I know there's fish there, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to be more confident, and I'm going to try and catch those fish versus, I only have a couple hours. I really don't have time to figure it out. I'm not going to go. So, Vexilar didn't wipe out panfish in Minnesota, and Aquaview didn't kill the fishing business, wipe out the fisheries. And I don't believe forward-facing sonar will. I think we're going to find out there's a lot more fish out there than we ever thought, because we didn't know there were guys up shallow, and we didn't know there were bass out deep.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing with the ice show and sea bass, we're going to get to you. We're going to let you kick ass, sea bass. But the one thing I noticed at the ice show, there were not people lining up to buy forward-facing sonar at all. I just didn't see lines of people standing there waiting to buy them. So I think some of it's waned a little bit. I think people have found out it's not that damn easy to use.
Yeah,
it's easy to use. Turn it on, do whatever.
Right.
But to actually make it work, to actually catch fish, I was out the other day. I was out with some eye candy and doing some Ned rigging, right? Because I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe I need to be a little more finessey and leave my cranks alone. So I did go out with my Garmin because I wanted to see the reaction. It was more of a lesson for me than anything. And what I learned is that little 9 to 11 tip of your rod, that equated to like a 2.5 foot jump. I'm like, well, there's no fish chasing, so here I am. I mean, I'm just nudging it and it looks like it's jumping 6 inches. So I learned something there. I'm like, well, that's why I can't catch fish when I'm jigging, because I'm not doing it right.
Yeah. I agree 100%. You're out there and you think, well, I'm just doing this, but down there, that jig is moving 6 off the bottom and there's no fish up here. And there's not chasing that up and down like a yo-yo. And so I learned how to be a little bit more subtle, but fish fast, right? So move bait slowly, but if there's nothing there, you're not seeing those fish react to it, get on to the next one. And if you can't get them to react, try something else. And if that doesn't work, get on to the next one and find something that's active. So
That makes a lot of sense. Seabass, bring your question on, buddy.
Here it is.
Okay. Oh my.
I love it. Yes, bring it on.
Do you think
Yeah,
Trump announcing tariffs in China, the major tackle manufacturers will bring manufacturing back to the U.S.?
Maybe. So I think Trump did this just not long ago, right? In 2018 or whatever, and the tariff went up by 10% on all fishing tackle, and that was a 10% tariff in 2018. Is that right? Yeah, 10%. And so that didn't really change anything. It like that price went up and people didn't boycott. It wasn't the end of the world. A lot of people wouldn't even know it happened, right? I think when you talk about 30%, if you're talking like 20 or 30 or 40%, then I think there'll be business that would come back here. The problem is, and I've been in the manufacturing side of this for 30 years, we have to have consistency. If Trump goes and puts a 25% tariff on it and you overreact and go move everything to Mexico, and then the new administration comes in 4 years later and says, well, that was ridiculous. We're going to put that on Mexico instead. We're not going to do China. And now you are kind of out of position every step of the way. And I've seen that happen to some people who, they were in Mexico, they went to China, and then they got nervous about China and that one. They went to Vietnam. And the thing about our industry is that it's relatively small. And so when all of a sudden the industry says, well, we're going to move manufacturing to Vietnam, the whole industry goes there and immediately there's a supply chain problem. I mean, it can't handle it.
Right.
They don't have a place to buy lead and paint, and they don't have an infrastructure for hooks and feathers and bucktail and, brass blades and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden you run into all kinds of problems. So I think there will be I think there will be some U.S. manufacturing because big companies, even like Northland, will say, I got to hedge my bet. I can't have too much in China. So maybe I want to have some in Dominican Republic. Maybe I want to have some in the U.S. We have a manufacturing facility in Serbia, in Belgrade, and that's where we make all the balsa lures. So you kind of get a diverse, we have manufacturing in all those places now, so that you're not really stuck with one. And I think the only reason it hasn't come back to the U.S. faster is just our labor rates went up so much in the last 5 years because of COVID. Now we're going through this period of time where there are not a lot of 25-year-olds out in the workplace. And now that 25-year-old is making 60, 70 grand doing this labor. And you have bartenders and waitresses making $100,000 in the city.
Yeah, right.
You don't
$20 at McDonald's.
Yeah, right. Or more, right? If you're
more, yeah, right.
So you just I think things have to kind of level out a little bit, but it's not as easy as a 20% tariff and then you're going to do it here. You can't get tungsten in the US. It has to come from overseas, or it has to come from the Yukon, or you have to recycle it in the US.
Oh my.
So some of these things that are great advancements for the industry and the fishery and the environment, unfortunately, they have to come from China right now. If you want to have
that was the other thing I was going to ask is not just the tariffs. I mean, tariffs are one thing, but if it's, our EPA regulations are so much higher than these other countries. And you talk about lead and tungsten and all this stuff. Like you said earlier on, Minnesota's going to do a lead ban. What does that do?
And so that limits you also, right? So you have to go somewhere that it's very expensive to move a factory, buy equipment in the U.S. and whatnot. And you just have to be assured that that business is going to be safe here. And with rods and reels, that industry has always been here. the premium stuff with St. Croix and G. Loomis and many of the small guys, or regional guys, I should say, not small. But when it comes to lures, there's not very many lures made here. The soft plastics were kind of the last of it. Soft plastics were all made in the U.S. until recently. But if you
gotta go ahead.
In general, is if you have to paint something, it's very difficult to do it in the U.S.
You got to hand it to Maynard's for being able to pull off what they have for as long as they have.
Yeah.
Isn't that an amazing story? Really. Yeah. They've done a great job. Did they made stuff for Northland years ago? Years and years ago?
It'd be before my time, but John Peterson had his hands in just about every portion of jig manufacturing at one time, because they manufactured up in northern Minnesota. And at once it was manufactured in Bemidji, then they moved it up to northern Minnesota and had a factory there that made it for a lot of people. And John was part owner in that. And then that factory is the one that moved to the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And that now they've gotten out of Haiti because that's too dangerous. Everything's in Dominican Republic. So, the deal is, in Central America, there's 5 countries in Central America that don't impose a duty. And so that's just like you have NAFTA for things between Mexico and the U.S. There's CAFTA, which is Central American Free Trade Agreement also. So if you can find the right people, you can go make it in Costa Rica and Guatemala and Dominican Republic and other places like that. But it's really hard that they don't have, it's not their culture to go make fishing lures.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, right.
And it's not what they do. Whereas in China, it has become their culture to be manufacturing small items like that.
And Japan, I think, is having some influence or on us, certainly in the bass world. And I wonder if that's not going to equate to the walleye world as well eventually.
Yeah. Well, I have an opinion on everything. So
we love it. That's why we like you on, Greg.
Right.
My opinion, I had somebody tell me the other day, man, the only thing that's selling in the bass world is Japanese domestic product. Everybody wants this JDM stuff. And I said, well, how can that possibly be? And they're like, oh, because, they make this and it's just unique and different and something else. And I said, what holds down our ingenuity in the U.S. is if we get too many people that are afraid to make something expensive. And I would fight, consumers would fight me on this in some cases, but my example was I can go into a store, big box store, and there'll be 20 or 40 feet of bass spinner baits. And they'll be from every brand and they'll all be $6.99 to $9.99. But I can go on Tackle Warehouse and there's 31 brands over $10.
Yeah.
And those are typically Japanese. And when you go look at them, it's not that the Japanese know how to make a spinnerbait better than we do. Yeah, a little squid lure.
Yes. And so that is a Japanese plug or crank that I got from a friend. Look at the hook system on that thing. I mean,
So that's
I don't even know what to do there, but it's just amazing, isn't it? And it's almost like, could that even work here? I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried it, but that is their Japanese and even down in Mexico, they use them in Mexico too. But we can make better lures.
Sure.
We have to not be afraid of selling them and trying them. And so.
And I think you guys have proved that over the last 5 years, like we had you on before. 99-cent yellow bin jigs. Yeah. And Northland had completely evolved from that to all the crazy tungsten and glass jigs and everything else that you guys have done. That's it.
The Vision 110 from Mega Bass, probably considered the best jerkbait in the world right now. And it's like $24, right? It is not. They do not do something that we can't do. That is just precision manufacturing. It costs money to do it that way. It takes a lot of testing and tuning, but anybody could make that. It's just that we get afraid of trying to sell something for $25. And And then we shy away from it, like, wow, Bass Pro won't put it in and this and that and something. I can't sell very many of them. But that's giving the impression that Japan is leading the innovation. And I think that we can lead the innovation. We just have to be a little bit more committed to trying it.
Makes sense.
And
yeah, I think Northland's done it. You look at the buckshot rattle spoon.
Yeah.
You look at the forage minnows. Even now, I'm not lying. I have a VIP account with Northland Tackle, and I went and spent a bunch of money because I like my VIP account might not be there much longer, and I went crazy on the new tungsten buckshot and the slender is it slender spoon? I went crazy on it. Anyway, I'm like, I gotta have that stuff. Then I got it and I opened it up. And I'm like, this stuff's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I will ever use a lead jig again if there's a tungsten version. So we'll make a tungsten smeltinator next year, and we've got a tungsten Ned head coming in some of these things. But I don't think I'll ever use a lead version if there's a tungsten version available. And then I think that after fishing last year with the tungsten buckshot, unless I find out that there's some inherent thing about the old buckshot, I don't think I'd use the old buckshot. I think I would always use tungsten. It's like $2 more, and it breaks through the slush faster. You can get a smaller jig down there faster, and the sound's great. It's such a hard material. It's the same rattle, and so that's the other thing. Yeah, I think brands they have to not be afraid to go make one better and actually own product.
Right.
And, I'm not suggesting we're not going to make the buckshot rattles when I do not want to get phone calls tomorrow morning. I'm just saying that, over time, we don't sell as many gumball jigs anymore or fireball jigs. We sell short shank tungsten, and that's the evolution that right now, virtually everything, something like 80% of our sales at Northland last year were new products or something that we brought out in less than 2 years. And so,
that makes sense. That does make sense. I know when we did the Tom Wynn University, okay, now I'm sold on the black and the olive, and I went to my Northland account and I went crazy and bought a ton, and so Tom Wynn, thank you very much. By the way, Tom Wynn's got a live tomorrow night. Everybody's watching that at, I believe, 8:00. Tom, if I'm wrong, pop up a comment, but then he's got something special as well. So we got to pay attention to that. I text him and said, oh, hey, I put you in my calendar. He goes, that's a very good idea. So I'm thinking whatever it is going to be huge. So I'm excited for that.
That's great. He's just wonderful. Here's a guy who's really changed our sport too. Little tiny black and olive jigs. Who would have ever thought? And then catching them on soft plastics.
Right. Well, I told you last episode that you would do my dad smiling down from heaven if you brought the lipstick jig back, and you're close. We need the skirt, but I was pretty happy when the black stand-up jig came out, and I'm like, oh, we're getting there. We just need the tube on it now.
And you could put your tube on it.
Yeah, we're looking at that too, because I want the next shape for soft plastics. You are going to love the way that a soft plastic bait stands up on that stand-up tungsten jig head, and the front of it is like a shovel, right? It's big.
Yeah.
So when you drag it across the sand, you like we were talking about, I don't want to hop it up off the bottom.
Right.
So you can feel every little piece of sand like it's a boulder that you're moving it through down there, and that's really one of my favorite jigs. And I think I announced it to you guys on the show.
Yeah. Yes.
It's coming.
Yeah, October 18th, 2023.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fine.
Well, and I think too the other component there is that little poof of the sediment that gets those perch or the walleye going, and it's game on. So truly amazing. By the way,
I will tell you this out of a favor: if you clean out the Bemidji factory and happen to find some old black lipstick and got one package laying around, I'd like to put it up in my dad's display case because I cannot find them anywhere.
promise I will go look. We're going through all this stuff right now. You know, John Peterson never threw anything away in 50 years. We would have been able to buy companies if we didn't have to keep all of his shoe boxes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
you'd have plenty of room for manufacturing if you would have had shoe boxes stacked up.
I mean, he never threw anything away for 50 years. He's worse than my wife.
Oh my.
Shout out to Dennis Benzie. I saw him not in there. And, you know, Dennis is the guy who really got me into walleye fishing. When I lived up in Minot, North Dakota, he was the manager at Shields and I was the manager at Target. And he said, you know, if you're going to work in retail, you might as well be in sporting goods, dude.
Yeah. What a great idea.
I went from there to Galleons and that kind of launched this career. And it's been the happiest 30 years of my life. So I love keeping in touch with Dennis.
So with that, go ahead.
Jason. I was just going to say, I met him with Johnny Candle in Chamberlain a couple of years ago. And what a great guy. And by the way, Johnny came on too. Johnny, thanks for watching. And he may be gone now, but he was one of the guys in the early In Through the Outdoors days that really gave me great content. And I'm thankful for him as well. But yeah, Dennis, a great guy, no doubt.
And Johnny, I sent Johnny a note last week and thank you, because he was one of the original barnstormers for this brand. Back in those days, you know, those guys on the PWT and the NAWA and some of those tournament trails when it was just starting up, man, they just went week to week to week, and they went to every little tackle shop and they sold Northland. And if they won a tournament, John got them a nice red, like Letterman's jacket for Northland.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
That was like a Hall of Fame jersey for some of those people. And what he did to create the brand was just fantastic. And there were a lot of people here that had a big hand in it. So
wonderful.
So with that, what is next for Gregg Wollner? I mean, what is next in your world after this is all? I'm sure you've got a few more months and maybe another year or whatever of getting this all done. But what is next for Gregg?
Well, I appreciate you asking. I don't know. You know what I've learned in this few years, and I've talked to a lot of people in the last week since this happened. I think the industry needs some people to come forward and go out and make the best gear possible. I think, you know, whether that's Loomis or St. Croix, whoever it is, I think those two make the best rods in the world, and there are a lot of great ones. I think those two have been around a long time. They know how to do it. And who's going to be the next Paul Schluter? Who's going to be the next Gary Loomis? Who's going to be the next John Peterson? And we have to try and find those people. And they need to bring some innovation. You know, John brought fireball jigs and whistler jigs and all kinds of techniques. The Linders, of course, brought the Lindy rig and all kinds of things. We need that. We need something to foster this young group of people. We've got a ton of young anglers in the sport right now for the first time.
True.
And there's something that's really happened. You know, the baby boomer generation, which now is 60 years old, is the youngest one. That group has gone through, and the sport benefited from all those people being in fishing. It's now got a new bump of 18 to 35-year-olds. And they have more money. And they have more money than 25-year-olds ever had, right? Like I have two of them. I have two kids in that age. They make more than I did till I was 40.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I realize times are different, but it's more disposable income. They're not buying houses right now and having kids. They're spending money. So there's a group of people out there that are young and will lead new changes and new ideas. And I'm going to try and find some of those people to work with one way or the other, and we'll see how that goes. And if nothing else, I'll just keep coming on this show every week.
There you go.
There you go. You know, that's perfect. And I love the way you think. We had a meeting last night, and it was a fantastic meeting. But one of the things that I said is we need to start kicking ass and making new names. Yeah. So that is fitting right in with what you said. And I'm glad you said that, because I feel really great about what we're putting together and what's coming in the future. And you have an idea of what's coming. So man, I'll tell you what, I applaud you and your thinking right now and the way you're thinking, because it's the truth. I've said it for years in radio. We need to foster these young kids in radio, and because that makes parents listen, and then they grow up and they teach their kids to listen. So the younger generation's good.
Yeah, if I could tell you one way I see that is, I grew up using my dad's lures, and my grandpa used a Daredevil spoon, so my dad used a Daredevil spoon, so I used a Daredevil spoon and a Prescott spinner and a Lindy rig and fireball jig or whatever. But today, that trend of being handed down from grandpa and dad to kid is being replaced by a kid who gets into it and says, "Grandpa, have you seen this yet?" John Peterson is not teaching Jace Peterson new lures and techniques.
Nope.
Jace Peterson is 25 years old and going to John, have you ever seen this? And he's like, what would you even do with that? So it's the young people that are driving the teaching. It is not this, and they don't consume the media the same way. They would rather watch this show than read a magazine. They'd rather, interact social media than watch TV or whatever it is. So all those changes are just creating tons of opportunity. But the young people, I believe, in the sport, if you look at bass fishing, it's just inundated with young talent, and walleye fishing's the same way.
Right.
And that's the thing. We were talking about that last night in our meeting, and we brought up the fact that look at they all year on the Bassmaster Elite, they kept talking about the new crop of rookies, and they came out and taught some old guys some stuff.
Yeah.
They really put their mark on the industry, and I haven't followed bass that much until this last year, but wow, what a staple they came out and did. I've never heard that many people talk about the young kids. And you got Trey McKinney at 18 years old and, crazy.
Jay Shakurat in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Right.
That list can go on and on. It is just, and they are poised, and they're great on camera, and they are believable. And they just have a different way of doing it. And it really makes a difference to get this youthful energy into the sport. And that's got to bring on some new brands or some new life to old brands, like it did for us. And we don't have to do it the way our parents did, because my kids are not going to do anything I tell them.
Yeah, no. Mine does everything opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has learned from me,
probably good, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there, no doubt. Boy, I tell you what, it's been great to have you on. I see we're getting close to a full hour here. It is amazing. I'm so glad that we got to know you last year, and that you were willing to come on. I was very apprehensive because I didn't want to be rude, and so I sent you that text, and I'm like, well, we'll see if he gets back to me. And you did relatively quickly. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Because I didn't want to offend you, right?
I don't have much to do right now. To be my schedule.
Okay. Well, so you next Wednesday, 7:00, we'll find a guest, and we'll see where we go from here. But always great to have you. I'm always gonna watch you and follow you on social media. And, you let me know where you're at and what's going on so we can keep in touch.
Yeah, I won't go far away. So you'll be able to find me, and anybody can get a hold of me anytime, and I appreciate everybody. So, Kurt, I'll go look for those lipstick jigs, and I'll get a hold of you next week. So.
Oh, I would. My dad would smile down knowing that I got my hands on one more black lipstick jig, because when I was in high school when they quit making them, he literally would make me stop anywhere I was that had sold tackle to see if they had black lipstick jigs on the wall and buy every single one of them. Like, I remember being in Watertown in an old bait shop, digging through boxes looking for black lipstick jigs for him.
Campesca Lodge. You were at Doris's Campesca Lodge is what you're. Matter of fact, speaking of that,
look at that.
There is an orange lipstick jig, and I got that from Doris at the Campesca Lodge. So I've been saving this. I'll paint it black if you don't ever find one.
It's funny that Tom Wynn thinks he invented black jigs, but apparently it was Kurt's dad.
Oh, my dad. I mean, we would a vertical jig from the time I can possibly remember black lips. Like I told you last time, when they came out with Chartreuse, it was like the world was coming to an end. And why are we got these Chartreuse? We just need black lipstick jigs. Like, I mean, I went to bed at night as a kid, just all I could hear was black lipstick jigs. And then they got rid of the black lipstick jigs, and then the world really came to an end. Then they came back with the black lipstick jigs with the white head, but they weren't the same. We need just the original black lipstick jigs.
I'm going to tear that place apart. Until
I love it. I hope you find some. I really do. I do. Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
We appreciate it.
Great to have you. Thank you so much. And you guys have a great holiday season, Thanksgiving coming up here, Christmas and all. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, man.